from the angel Gabriel, according to their tradition, and then swept across North Africa, what we now think of as the Middle East, Turkey, in the 600s, 700s, and so that was probably the beginning of it. Most of those countries were in some way or another Christian, although not in the way we think of that today, but loosely speaking Christian. So, when one nation or religious grouping conquers another one, that creates an issue, as you might guess. Then the second big thing was kind of the reverse, was the Crusades. So it was the Christian European nations under the banner of Catholicism or Christianity at the time, going back into the Holy Land, back into what we now call Israel, and taking back Jerusalem and the cities around the Middle East that were conquered by Muslims. So, through the 1100s, 1200s, you got the Christians reconquering that from the Muslims. In Eastern thinking, and definitely in the Muslim world, that feels to them like it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, when the Crusades happened. Now, maybe that's not fair, but that's the way it's felt there. And then you have this modern issue of, since 9/11, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, America and Western Christian countries kind of attacking. Now we would think of liberating, but they feel like attacking. It's interesting how perspective works on either side, those Muslim countries.
Historically, after the wall came down in Berlin, 1989, I think in the West, the main enemy has grown to become Islam. And this is something very recent. When we look at last century, the famous historian Eric Hobsbawm, who wrote the book The Century of Extremism, he counted out that 188 million people were killed in the 20th century because of extreme ideologies. All these ideologies were formed in the Christian Europe by people who had gone to theological seminary like Lenin, Stalin, and Marx. And of course Adolf Hitler broke with the church, but they all came from a Christian background. So I think the problem lies more in the human nature. And this is also what we see today, that many Muslims, they hijack the Islamic faith in order to use it for their evil purposes.
The issue between Christian nations, quote unquote, Christian nations and Muslim nations is huge. And literally, I think you can't go through a day without reading or seeing something about this Muslim thing, something about terrorism. And you wonder, don't you? You wonder, does the Quran encourage that? I mean, is it in this book, the Quran? I mean, does the Quran tell Muslims to kill Christians and Jews or not? And so we're going to try to unpack these things, educate you. But mostly, I would say, so partially education, but mostly these videos will be to alleviate fear, because you can't love somebody you're afraid of.
Martin Luther King Jr. had a very important insight. He said, we don't live in a black versus white world. We don't live in an Easterner versus Westerner world. We live in a world where people who would live together as brothers have to defeat those who would perish together as fools. We don't live in a Muslim versus Christian world. We live in a world where people who believe in societies where those of us from all backgrounds live in equal dignity and mutual loyalty are against people who want only their group to dominate and everyone else to suffocate.
First of all, does the Quran encourage violence? Right, we've heard that quite a bit. The Quran encourages violence, and if you're a good Muslim actually believing in the Quran, then you would kill infidels. We've heard that word infidels, that they're told to kill infidels. The word infidel actually just is kafir. Infidel is a kafir in Arabic, and kafir means pagan, really. It means person without faith. So a Christian and a Jew is definitely not an infidel, because Christians and Jews in the Quran are people of the book, people of faith. Muhammad very clearly tells in post-Quranic writings in the Hadith how to treat Christians and Jews. But even in the Quran, they're told to be protected and to be favored, actually, among all people. Now, if you're a Muslim like bin Laden and you want to